stand ready, because what is about to unfold may become one of the most extraordinary spiritual turning points many people have experienced in a very long time. There are rare seasons when the universe seems to gather multiple currents of energy into one uninterrupted flow, and this is one of those seasons. After everything these past several months have demanded from the human spirit, this arrival feels almost perfectly timed. Perhaps you have carried the quiet feeling that something significant was approaching, even if you could not explain why. Perhaps you have sensed that the exhausting cycle of emotional tests, uncertainty, and invisible pressure could not continue forever. If that feeling has been living inside you, then you may already be standing at the doorway of the very period you have been waiting to reach. When you step back and observe the sequence of events, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The recent meteor showers continue illuminating the sky above us. The moon is traveling through powerful phases that shape the emotional atmosphere. Lion's Gate draws closer on August 8th, and only 4 days later the total solar eclipse arrives on August 12th. These are not isolated moments that happen to share the same calendar. They belong to one continuous spiritual progression, each event naturally preparing the ground for the next, creating a single unfolding story instead of disconnected experiences. That uninterrupted chain alone makes these first 12 days unlike nearly anything that has appeared throughout this year. More importantly, it arrives exactly when so many spiritually aware people needed it most. For months, it may have felt as though life continued asking for more strength, more patience, more surrender, while offering almost nothing in return. Many have continued carrying responsibilities that seem to multiply without receiving the emotional confirmation that their efforts mattered. Yet this period carries an entirely different atmosphere. It feels less like another challenge and more like the quiet acknowledgement that every difficult step served a purpose. It resembles the reward reserved for those who refuse to abandon themselves during seasons when giving up would have felt easier than continuing forward. Think about your own path. How many times have you found yourself recovering after believing you had nothing left to give? How many disappointments have forced you back onto your feet before you even had time to catch your breath? If you have repeatedly rebuilt yourself after being pushed down, then your spirit has already been preparing for this exact chapter. If life attempted to convince you that you were finished, yet somehow you kept moving anyway, then you already possess the resilience this moment asks for. This invitation does not belong to those who walked away as soon as difficulty appeared. It belongs to those who continued placing one foot in front of the other, even when there was no guarantee that anyone noticed their perseverance. If you are still standing after everything you have survived, then perhaps this season has been waiting for you just as much as you've been waiting for it. Many spiritual teachings encourage people to withdraw completely whenever an eclipse arrives. They recommend disconnecting from the world, reducing every form of stimulation, and remaining hidden until the intensity fades. Yet a total solar eclipse carries a different spiritual lesson. When the sun becomes fully covered, the invitation is not simply to empty yourself or disappear from your own experience. Instead, it asks you to remain close to whatever still feels undeniably real, while everything around you becomes more difficult to interpret. That source of familiarity does not need to be another person. It may be a location where your thoughts naturally become peaceful. It could be a melody that always reminds you of who you truly are beneath the noise. It may be a daily practice that reconnects you with your own center, or even a single object whose memories continue reminding you of your deepest truth. While many eclipses encourage reducing outside influence and quietly waiting, this total solar eclipse may ask for something different. Keeping one steady presence beside you becomes an anchor, because this kind of darkness does more than temporarily remove the light. It quietly reveals what continues guiding you after the light can no longer be seen. During this day, resist the temptation to chase dramatic signs or force yourself into some overwhelming spiritual breakthrough. Guard your attention carefully. Refuse to allow passing emotions or unpredictable moods to make permanent choices for you. Instead, pay close attention to whatever continues feeling genuine, even while the surrounding energy becomes increasingly intense. That unwavering truth becomes the real gift hidden inside the deepest darkness. Your authentic direction is whatever remains present after everything temporary fades away. Not everyone will experience these first 12 days in exactly the same way, and that difference may itself become one of the earliest signs that August is already separating people according to the moment their understanding arrives. Some belong to what could be called the early knowers. Long before learning about Lion's Gate, the eclipse, or any important dates, they already sensed that this month carried unusual importance. They could not fully explain the feeling, yet something inside quietly recognized that this period would not resemble an ordinary chapter of the year. Others belonged to the sudden receivers. Nothing seemed unusual beforehand, but somewhere within these 12 days, a single experience suddenly transforms everything. It may appear insignificant on the surface, yet its meaning arrives with unmistakable clarity all at once. Then there are the late connectors. They move through the entire sequence believing nothing extraordinary has happened. Only after August 12th do they begin recognizing that several conversations, emotional reactions, unexpected choices, or seemingly unrelated moments were actually pieces of one larger design. None of these experiences makes one person more spiritually awakened than another. The difference exists only in timing. Some souls recognize the significance before the moment fully arrives. Others only recognize its importance after the experience has quietly reshaped who they have become. Many people believe Lion's Gate represents the defining event of this entire season. They highlight August 8th on the calendar and assume every meaningful transformation reaches its peak there. Yet perhaps the greatest mystery is not the portal itself. Perhaps the deeper spiritual examination begins during the 4 days that follow. Between Lion's Gate and the total solar eclipse exists a remarkably brief passage of time, and within that quiet interval your soul is being observed far more gently and far more profoundly than you may realize. Do not mistake what is happening during this period as a verdict being placed upon your life, because that is not the deeper purpose of these days. What is taking place is far more subtle. It is a quiet examination of whether everything you believe has truly become part of the way you live. There comes a point on every spiritual path where knowledge alone is no longer enough. Understanding must become action, and intention must become reality. That is why some people may reach August 8th, expecting an overwhelming experience, and instead walk away believing nothing remarkable occurred. Then, almost without warning, 1 day later, or perhaps 2 or 3 days afterward, their world begins shifting in ways they never anticipated. Suddenly, conversations feel different. Certain emotions refuse to stay hidden. Old attachments begin revealing themselves. Decisions that once felt easy become impossible to avoid. Seen from another perspective, Lion's Gate is less like the destination itself and more like the opening of a passage. The doorway appears first, but the following 4 days quietly determine what is truly prepared to cross that threshold beside you. If, during that time, you notice familiar fears, unhealthy patterns, painful memories, or exhausting relationships pulling at you once again, resist the urge to immediately believe you are being attacked or punished. Sometimes, what feels like resistance is simply the final moment of exposure before something reaches its natural ending. Certain burdens cannot continue into the next chapter, so they become impossible to overlook before they finally release their hold. This is why life's greatest blessings rarely arrive the instant a new opportunity appears. More often they reveal themselves after you have demonstrated that you are genuinely willing to leave behind whatever no longer belongs with you. For those whose emotions naturally absorb the energy around them, Lion's Gate may unfold in a way that feels completely opposite to popular expectations. Instead of waking with endless motivation, certainty, and excitement, you may feel emotionally full, mentally exhausted, or unexpectedly drawn towards solitude. You may find yourself cancelling plans that once seemed important. You may crave silence instead of conversation. You may feel an almost irresistible need to step away from constant stimulation, even if only for a short while. At first, this reaction can create unnecessary worry. You might wonder whether you somehow miss the energy or fail to receive what everyone else seems to describe. Yet what if this very response is evidence that the portal is unfolding exactly as it should for you? Sensitive souls often discover clarity only after the surrounding noise reaches a point where remaining inside it becomes impossible. Distance creates perspective. Silence reveals what constant activity concealed. In that quiet space, many people suddenly recognize that the very things draining their energy were never nearly as essential as they once believed. The endless pressure did not create truth. It simply became loud enough that truth could no longer remain hidden beneath it. That may be the greatest surprise hidden inside Lion's Gate. The moment that feels as though you are stepping away from life may actually be the precise moment life begins gently guiding you towards something that fits your spirit far better. Growth does not always happen because more opportunities, more responsibilities, or more experiences are added. Sometimes the soul advances only after unnecessary weight finally falls away. And when that burden begins lifting, another realization often follows. Your purpose never disappeared. Your direction was never truly lost. You simply had not yet created enough space to recognize it clearly. Many people mistakenly treat August 8th as though it marks the conclusion of this spiritual season. They prepare for Lion's Gate, complete whatever personal ritual or practice they planned, and then mentally move on, believing the opportunity has already passed. Yet that assumption overlooks one of the most meaningful aspects of this entire sequence. August 8th is not the ending. It marks the point where the energy begins carrying everything forward toward the total solar eclipse on August 12th. The days immediately following Lion's Gate are not empty pauses between significant events. They are the unfolding process, through which the portal gradually reveals its true influence. During those days, notice what begins changing, what unexpectedly loses its emotional grip, and what repeatedly returns to your awareness, no matter how hard you try to ignore it. Someone may experience nothing dramatic on August 8th and conclude they somehow missed the opportunity, only to encounter their genuine turning point on August 9th, August 10th, or August 11th. This is why withdrawing your attention too early may become the greatest misunderstanding of the entire period. You were never behind anyone else. You simply stopped watching before the most meaningful chapter had fully revealed itself. Lion's Gate does not suddenly lose its influence because the calendar advances. Instead, its effects continue unfolding as the portal carries directly into the eclipse. In many ways, the quieter days after the excitement fades may contain the most important messages of all. Pay close attention to whatever continues returning to your thoughts during those 4 days, because that recurring theme may be exactly what August is gently placing before you, before the light transforms on August 12th. The significance of August 12th does not exist, because 3 unrelated spiritual events happen to occur on the same date. Its power comes from the remarkable way each event fulfills a different role within one continuous unfolding experience. First, the moon reaches its new phase, removing its familiar light from the nighttime sky. Then that same moon passes directly across the face of the sun, creating a total solar eclipse and temporarily covering the daylight itself. Finally, as evening arrives, that extraordinary darkness naturally prepares the sky for the most important viewing period of the Perseid Meteor Shower, whose calculated peak occurs during the early hours of August 13th, Coordinated Universal Time. The new moon darkens the night. The total solar eclipse darkens the day. Then the Perseids emerge more clearly because of that deepened darkness. Hidden within that sequence is the deeper architecture supporting these first 12 days. The light is not fading because the universe has become empty. The light is being softened because something quieter, something far more subtle, could never be recognized while ordinary brightness continued demanding all of your attention. There are moments when the sky does something that seems almost impossible at first glance. Instead of revealing more through greater brightness, it allows darkness to briefly take the place of light. Only then do the hidden movements that were always present become visible. That is the deeper rhythm guiding this extraordinary sequence. By the time August 12th arrives, every event that came before it has been leading toward the same destination. Lion's Gate begins the unfolding by opening the spiritual passage. The days that follow steadily refine your attention, removing distractions one layer at a time, until the total solar eclipse temporarily covers the familiar light and creates the perfect conditions for another kind of illumination to emerge. What reveals itself during that moment is not necessarily something newly created. More often, it is something that has existed all along, but could never be fully recognized while your attention remained fixed on what felt comfortable and familiar. Many people imagine spiritual awakening as a permanent destination where, once the truth has finally been discovered, nothing meaningful ever changes again. That version feels reassuring because it promises certainty. It suggests that once you have found the correct understanding, your only responsibility is to protect it forever. It is naturally satisfying when every new experience seems to reinforce what you already believe. Every meaningful coincidence appears to validate your direction. Every spiritual message feels like another confirmation that your path has been correct from the very beginning. Yet genuine awakening eventually reaches a much more demanding stage. There comes a moment when life quietly places something before you that does not comfortably fit inside the story you have been repeating about yourself or the world around you. These first 12 days of August may become exactly that kind of experience. You may unexpectedly encounter an idea that, under ordinary circumstances, you would have dismissed almost instantly. This time, however, something different happens. Instead of rejecting it without hesitation, you remain with it a little longer. Curiosity begins replacing immediate resistance. You may discover yourself sincerely exploring something you once considered completely mistaken, unnecessary, or entirely incompatible with everything you believed. That does not mean you are drifting away from your path. Quite the opposite. It may signal that your awareness has matured enough to examine unfamiliar perspectives without feeling endangered by their existence. There is a profound distinction between changing your beliefs because another person pressures you into doing so and becoming curious because your own consciousness is naturally expanding beyond its previous limits. One experience asks you to surrender your own judgment. The other strengthens your ability to use it more wisely. During this remarkable period, you may suddenly recognize why another individual sees the world differently than you do. You may begin understanding how a path you once criticized genuinely serves someone else's journey. You may even revisit an idea you rejected years ago and discover that hidden within it was one meaningful truth you simply were not prepared to recognize when you first encountered it. Experiences like these often create discomfort because many people unconsciously build their spiritual identity around certainty. They become attached to being the one who already knows the answers. They feel confident that they understand the meaning behind every important event, every meaningful sign, every spiritual lesson, and every correct belief. Yet as the total solar eclipse draws closer, certainty itself may quietly lose its position as the highest goal. Curiosity gradually becomes more valuable than absolute confidence. You may begin realizing that awakening was never intended to shrink your mind into a place where unfamiliar ideas automatically feel threatening. Instead, it was always meant to develop your ability to observe more without immediately feeling the need to either embrace everything or reject everything. Authentic awakening does not hand you a larger collection of beliefs to defend against the world. It gradually removes the fear that once prevented you from honestly examining those beliefs in the first place. This may become one of the greatest surprises hidden inside August for people who believe their spiritual growth had already reached its final chapter. The next level of awareness may not arrive by confirming that every conclusion you previously reached was perfectly correct. Instead, it may appear in the form of a question your familiar perspectives cannot completely answer. You may experience the surprising realization that two ideas you always believed could never coexist each contain something valuable. You may recognize that a belief which faithfully guided you through one season of life has gradually become too limited for the person you are now becoming. None of this requires abandoning everything you have learned. Rather, it invites you to stop treating every unfamiliar perspective as though it were automatically an enemy. You become capable of listening without immediately surrendering your discernment. You become capable of considering an idea without feeling obligated to agree with it completely. You become capable of asking difficult questions without believing your identity is somehow being threatened. That kind of awareness reaches much deeper than simply collecting spiritual concepts that comfortably match your existing worldview. Some people may experience this transformation during an unexpected conversation. Others may encounter it while watching a video, reading a book, or even through a single thought that quietly appears without warning and refuses to disappear. Something that once would have made you immediately dismiss it may now cause you to pause instead. That pause carries enormous significance because it reveals that your mind is no longer operating only through automatic reactions. You have created enough inner space to sincerely ask whether there might be something here you have never fully explored before. That willingness to remain present instead of reacting instantly may become one of the greatest gifts hidden within these first 12 days. Lion's Gate may awaken your awareness to a higher level. The days immediately following it may quietly reveal what you are genuinely prepared to reconsider. Then the total solar eclipse may temporarily soften the certainty you have relied upon for so long, allowing your vision to extend beyond the boundaries of your current understanding and revealing possibilities that could never have become visible while your attention remained fixed only on what already felt familiar. There are times when the next step in your spiritual journey does not appear wrapped in inspiration or immediate understanding. Instead, it can arrive disguised as something your mind instinctively wants to reject. It may seem completely out of place, even incorrect, until the exact moment your awareness becomes ready to recognize why it entered your life in the first place. That possibility becomes especially important as August 12th approaches. The total solar eclipse should not be viewed as merely the final event in this remarkable sequence of days. Its deeper role is to reshape the meaning of everything that unfolded before it, an emotion that surfaced unexpectedly around August 2nd, a realization that quietly appeared near August 4th. The growing intensity surrounding Lion's Gate and the unusual atmosphere that followed. None of these moments may fully explain themselves while you are living through them. Yet once the eclipse arrives, experiences that once appeared separate may suddenly reveal themselves as pieces of one continuous unfolding. This is why the opening 11 days of August should never be treated as isolated spiritual moments scattered across a calendar. Together, they serve as preparation, even when that preparation feels ordinary or difficult to recognize. Some mornings may fill you with remarkable clarity, while others seem completely uneventful. One day, you may feel absolutely convinced that something significant is taking place beneath the surface of your life, only to spend the following day wondering whether your intuition imagined the entire experience. That changing rhythm is not evidence that something has gone wrong. It is part of the way preparation naturally unfolds, because the most meaningful inner transformations rarely announce themselves while they are happening. They reveal their importance only after enough pieces have quietly fallen into place. Consider how often understanding arrives only when the final connection is made. Words you heard several days earlier suddenly carry an entirely different meaning. An emotional response that once seemed confusing is recognized as an early warning. A quiet attraction toward a particular direction finally begins revealing why it kept returning to your awareness. Before the eclipse, these experiences may appear too small or too unrelated to deserve much attention. Afterward, however, the pattern may become so clear that overlooking it is no longer possible. The total solar eclipse does not suddenly invent a new story on August 12th. It uncovers the story that has been developing ever since August began. Because of that, once the eclipse has passed, it becomes worthwhile to gently reflect on the days that came before it, not with the intention of forcing ordinary experiences to become mystical signs, nor by obsessing over every tiny detail, but by honestly observing what repeatedly returned throughout the journey. Ask yourself which ideas continued appearing, no matter how often you moved your attention elsewhere. Notice which subjects unexpectedly resurfaced more than once. Reflect on what gradually stopped holding your interest, even though it once seemed important. Consider what quietly became more meaningful, despite your inability to explain why. The deeper message may not exist inside one unforgettable event. It may instead be scattered across several seemingly insignificant moments that only reveal their relationship when viewed together from the perspective the eclipse provides. These opening 11 days may also prepare each individual through completely different experiences. One person may feel unexpectedly guided toward slowing down and creating more space for reflection. Another may experience an equally powerful urge to finally begin taking action. Someone may reconnect with an idea they abandoned many years ago, while someone else discovers that they have naturally released something that occupied their thoughts for far longer than it deserved. Although these experiences may appear unrelated when viewed separately, they can all serve the same spiritual purpose. Each one gently positions a different soul exactly where it needs to stand before the eclipse changes the quality of the light. That is one of the reasons a total solar eclipse carries such profound spiritual symbolism. It briefly interrupts something humanity normally experiences as constant and unquestionable. The sun shines so consistently that very few people pause to imagine what even a short absence of its light might feel like. Then, for a brief period, the moon moves directly across it. Daylight changes. Something that always felt dependable suddenly becomes unfamiliar. Spiritually, this temporary transformation can represent an interruption of certainty itself. The beliefs, perspectives, and assumptions that normally help you understand your life may briefly feel less secure, not because they're being removed forever, but because you are being shown what continues existing after your ordinary source of clarity has been temporarily covered. This is also why every event leading toward August 12th carries such importance. Lionsgate may introduce powerful intensity, but the eclipse quietly asks what that intensity ultimately revealed about you. The movement of the moon may redirect your attention, but the eclipse asks where that attention finally chose to remain. The activity of the Perseid Meteor Shower may fill the heavens with wonder, yet the eclipse asks an entirely different question. While your eyes were lifted toward the sky, what quietly became visible within your own heart? As we reach the end of this journey together, thank you for remaining present through every step of it. These first 12 days of August may carry unusual intensity, but never lose sight of where they are leading. Continue moving forward with patience. Continue observing with openness. Continue trusting that something better may already be much closer than it appears from where you stand today. Take good care of yourself, and I look forward to sharing the next journey with you.